Yes,
Okay. My screen is also visible to all of you guys, right?
yes,
Okay. So this is demo session 2. And today, actually, we are going to start our main concept, right? So chapter 1, we are going to start from today. So whatever you see in chapter 1, there are 19 sub-chapters, and I'm trying to complete these 19 sub-chapters by the end of this weekend, right? By Sunday, I'm trying to complete all these chapters. So first of all, today we are going to discuss the .NET Developer Roadmap for 2023 and beyond. Then I will discuss you some of the basic concept, right, which you must be aware. How does the computer work? What are the different types of a programming language? What is language? What is programming language? What is high level and low level programming languages? What exactly, how does the computer program works? What are the different types of applications, right? Like standalone applications, desktop applications, web applications. Then I'm going to discuss programming methodologies, right? I will give a brief introduction to object-oriented programming, procedural modular programming, as well as monolithic programming. Then I'm going to discuss you what is .NET framework. Then I will discuss you .NET framework architecture. Then I'm going to discuss you what is ASP.NET Core framework, right? So guys, remember .NET framework and ASP.NET Core framework, both are two different things. Don't think that both are going to be same. I will discuss what is .NET framework as well as what is .NET Core framework. And this course is basically targeting our ASP.NET Core, right? So basically using .NET 6, we are going to develop the application. So that doesn't mean I'm not going to show you how to use .NET framework. So basically what it means, I'm going to show you the examples using both environments, right? How it is working with .NET Framework and how it is working with .NET 6. .NET 6 means it is the new name of a .NET Core. Then I will show you how you can download and install Visual Studio, how you can download and install .NET Core SDK, how you can download and install, right, Visual Studio Code, how to download and install SQL Server 2022. This is the latest version of SQL Server database, and that is what we are going to use. And finally, I'm going to show you how you can download and install SQL Server Management Studio. Once this is completed, then I'm going to give you a brief introduction to C# programming language. What is C# programming language? What are the different programming languages supported by Microsoft? Why we should prefer to use C# over VB.NET over F#, J#, right? And then I'm going to discuss one of the important concept, that is what is the difference between .NET Core and .NET Framework. And then I'm going to show you what is the code execution process, means how the application code is going to be executed in .NET Framework and how the application code is going to be executed in .NET Core. So basically what I need to tell in this case, what is the CLR for .NET Framework, what is the CLR for .NET Core, how the CLR is going to be execute the application code. And finally, I'm going to create a console application using Visual Studio 2022 and .NET 6. With this, our chapter 1 is going to be completed. And I'm targeting to complete this chapter by the end of this weekend. Clear? So this is the things what I'm planning for this weekend. Now let us try to understand this first chapter. What is the .NET Developer Roadmap? So basically what it means, right? What it means if you want to become a .NET developer, then what are the mandatory tools, framework, libraries you should be aware of? What are the things is optional? Optional means it is not mandatory, but good to have, right? What are the things mandatory? What are the things optional? Which is definitely you should have, right? Which you can have or you cannot have, right? Those things we need to understand. And .NET ecosystem is very fast, right? And constantly they are developing new tools, new framework, new libraries, which will help us as a .NET developer to develop different kind of applications, right? So different kind of applications, whenever I'm saying, you can develop cloud optimized applications, you can develop IoT applications, you can develop mobile applications, desktop applications, web applications, RESTful services, right? Every kind of applications you can develop using .NET. And for to develop different kind of applications, .NET ecosystem, or you can say Microsoft, provide different tools, different framework, and different libraries. So as a .NET developer, we need to stay updated with the latest trends, right? Latest technologies, which is mandatory for us to compete in this IT industry, right? So you can see the IT industry is changing day by day, right? So we also need to update ourselves. We also need to change our mindset, right? So that whatever the technology in demand, whatever the technology is going to be built in the next 5 years, right? Those technologies we should know, we should understand, and we should use in our programming, or we should use to develop, right, our applications, right? So here is a roadmap, right, for becoming a proficient .NET developer, right? So let us first try to understand what are the skills, what are the knowledge one might acquire, become a proficient or pro .NET developer. So to develop .NET applications, we are having two frameworks. One is you can say .NET, or you can say this is the legacy. Why I'm saying legacy? Because currently Microsoft not providing any support for a .NET framework, right? Currently Microsoft not providing any support for a .NET framework. The last framework, right, the last version which they was released is .NET 4.8. After .NET 4.8, from the last 3 4 years, they are not developing anything in .NET framework. This is the reason why I can say this is the legacy framework. And this .NET Core means it is the new, it is the latest, and it is the demanded framework, or you can say latest technology that what you should know. So what is the difference between these two? Let us try to understand. .NET framework is a software development framework. Definitely, we are learning these things to develop software. So whether it is a .NET framework or whether it is .NET Core, both are only going to develop software only, right? And both are going to be provided Microsoft only. But this .NET framework, if you are using, then you can build, you can run different kind of applications, but only on Windows operating system, right? So if you are targeting .NET framework means you are ultimately targeting the Windows operating system to develop and run the applications, right? So you should have a Windows operating system installed on your machine to develop the application, and you should have IIS server, right, where you need to host your application and run your applications. Please unmute. Guys, one request, whenever you are joining, please mute yourself, right? Because it will disrupt not only me, but also other people, right? It is my humble request to please mute yourself, and I will give you enough time to ask questions. So when I ask you to ask question, at that time you can unmute yourself, and whatever question on your mind, you can ask. Right. So currently, I'm just going to give you an overview. What are the framework? What are the tools? What are the technologies? Right, provided by Microsoft. So basically, you need to understand .NET framework means it is targeting Windows operating system, means whatever required, right? Right. So what it means? It means you can develop the application using Windows operating system, and you need to host the application using Windows operating system also. Windows operating system means you need to host the application using IIS server. And in this case, it supports different programming languages like C Sharp, VB, Sharp, and it also allowed to develop different kind of applications like desktop application, web application, as well as runtime services. And this .NET framework provides a collection of libraries, right, which we can build. That libraries we can say BCL or FCL, framework class library, or you can say base class libraries, using which you can develop and you can build your .NET framework application, which is targeting the Windows operating system. And coming to .NET Core, it is completely free, open source, and cross-platform. So free means the source code, right? You do not need to buy the software, right? You can directly install it on your machine. Open source means the source code, right? For example, whatever application, whatever library we are going to use to develop the .NET Core application, behind the scene, what code is written. For example, if I'm taking the simple example, console.writeLine, writeLine one method. That writeLine method, whenever I'm using, it is displaying the data on the output screen. But how that writeLine method is implemented by Microsoft? If you are using .NET Core, then you can't see the source code, right? But if you are using .NET Core, then you can see that source code on the GitHub, right? So that openly, the source code is openly available, right? And you can see, you can download the source code, you can modify the source code, and you can also use that modified version in your application, right? So this is open source. Cross-platform means what? Now this .NET Core is not only cross-platform from the development point of view, but also it is cross-platform from the hosting point of view. What it means? It means, right, you can use .NET Core, right, to develop application on different type of operating system. right? You can develop the application on Windows operating system, Linux operating system, Mac operating system, right? So various operating systems supported by .NET Core to develop the application. And again, when it comes to hosting, you can have many options, right? You can use IaaS, you can use NGX, you can use Apache Tomcat, even you can host your application on cloud. So basically, this .NET is cloud optimized web application framework. Cloud optimized means you can easily develop the application and host on different clouds. So Microsoft Azure, right? Google Cloud. Then you can use Amazon, right? Amazon Web Services, right? Different cloud services are provided. You can also host your application on the cloud. So this is basically the main objective of .NET Core is this thing: free, open source, and cross-platform. But this is not open source. This is not cross-platform, and this is not now. So I hope you understand what is these two different framework. One is .NET framework and another one is .NET Core. So if you are using .NET framework, for example, the example is what I can say ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Web API. Those are targeting .NET framework. Means those applications can be developed using Windows operating system and can be hosted on IaaS server only. Coming to .NET Core, right? People are talking about ASP.NET Core MVC, ASP.NET Core Web API, Blazor, ASP.NET Core Razor services, right? These are the applications that you can develop using .NET Core and which is going to be free, open source, and cross-platform. Right? See, so these are nothing but two different framework, right? Which we use as a .NET developer. If you are having right prior to right, if you are having good experience, then you might be aware about this .NET framework, and right, and this is the latest and the new demanded technology. So you should know what is exactly .NET framework and what is exactly .NET Core. Next is ASP.NET and ASP.NET Core. See, these are the framework. They provide the runtime environment where your application is going to be hosted. They are going to provide the libraries using which you can develop the application. But to develop the application, to develop the exactly web application, right? If you are using .NET framework, then you need to use ASP.NET, right? If you are using .NET Core, then you need to use ASP.NET Core. So if someone asks you what is the difference between these two, yes, there is some difference. ASP.NET basically target ASP.NET is basically target .NET framework, means using ASP.NET framework, you can develop the application which can only run on Windows operating system, right? But using ASP.NET Core, you can develop the web application. See, guys, remember whenever I'm saying ASP.NET means it's related to web application. And this .NET framework means it is the platform where the different kind of a .NET application is going to be run. It doesn't matter whether you are developing the web application, Windows application, RESTful services, desktop services, console application. To run that application, you need .NET framework. Similarly, if you are developing application using .NET Core, right? Any kind of application to run that application, you need the .NET Core framework, right? And this ASP.NET and ASP.NET Core means these are the two web application development technologies, right? So using ASP.NET Core, you can develop web applications. Using ASP.NET Core also you can develop the web applications. Using ASP.NET Core means you need to use ASP.NET Core MVC, ASP.NET Web Form application, ASP.NET Web API framework to develop RESTful services, right? If you want to develop such applications, then you need to use ASP.NET, right? And if you want to develop web applications like ASP.NET Core Razor Pages, ASP.NET Core MVC, ASP.NET Core Web API, then you need to use this ASP.NET Core framework, right? So basically, they are nothing but one framework, and their framework means they are providing the ready to use, right? Ready to use tool. Ready to use tool means they are going to provide one ready-made template using which you can develop the application, right? Whatever required for developing the web application, ready-made things they are providing to you. And then as per your requirement, you can change the things, right? So these are nothing but two different web application development framework that you should know. So you should know what is .NET framework, .NET Core, and you also need to know what is ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET, uh, right? So these two things you should know. Next one is you should be right, as you are going to be a proficient developer, .NET developer, you should be aware about these two data access ORM technology. You can say ORM, Object Relational Mapping Framework. So you might know these things entity framework, right? And this is entity framework core. So what exactly this means? This means this entity framework which you can use with the ASP.NET, and using .NET framework means entity framework means it is related to ASP.NET and the .NET framework. Entity framework core means it is related to your ASP.NET core as well as into .NET core. Right. So if you are developing application using .NET framework, then you need to use entity framework. And if you are using, if you are developing application using .NET core, means you need to use entity framework core. So what exactly this entity framework core or entity framework means? It is a relational mapping framework, right? So it basically specifies, right, if you want to communicate with the database, right, without using ADO.NET, then you can use this relational mapping framework. So in this case, it will map our model classes to the database object. Similarly, it will also remap that database object to the model classes. So what it means? It means based on the settings, based on the configuration, it is going to generate the required database, right? To generate the required SQL statement. Again, based on the database, it is also going to generate it is going to generate the model classes for our project, right? So basically there are two options. One is model first. In that case, based on the model, the database is going to be generated. Another one is database first. Based on the database, the model classes are going to be generated. And then using the entity framework or entity framework core, we can perform the database CRUD operations very easily, right? From our application, we can create the database table. From our application, we can insert the data into the database. From our application, we can update, we can modify, we can delete the data into the database. Even from our application, we can invoke the storage procedure, storage function, right? Even it is also possible to implement one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many relationship, right? Based on our application requirement. So for that purpose, you need to learn entity framework and entity framework core. So guys, in our application, right, in this course, I'm going to discuss this thing. So these things I'm going to discuss. These things I'm going to discuss. What is .NET framework? I'm going to explain in this course. What is .NET core? I'm going to explain, right? But this course is not related to ASP.NET core or ASP.NET, right? This, but yes, at some point of time at the end, right, I'm going to discuss how you can develop application using ASP.NET core, right? So if you see the syllabus, there is a separate chapter I have created where I'm going to show you how you can develop application using .NET, means how you can develop web application using .NET core, right? And I'm not going to explain this ASP, how you can develop application using ASP.NET MVC or ASP.NET web API, because we are targeting the latest trend. So this is what I'm also going to cover, but I'm going to cover, but not in depth, right? So guys, remember ASP.NET site, right? Whatever I'm showing here, individually ASP.NET core web, it is a different course together. It is a different course together. So individually, everyone is one course itself. So I'm going to just give you some basic idea how you can develop the application, web application using .NET core, right? So once this is completed, then you need to be mastering and in C# and .NET fundamentals, right? So mastering in C# and .NET fundamental means, right, if you want to become a proficient, if you want to become a pro .NET developer, then you should master the C# concept. And this is the main objective. This is the main topic that what we are going to learn in this whole course, right? So we are going to develop the whole course C# concept in this session. So basically, if you see C#, what is C#? C# is a secure, simple, robust, portable, platform independent, architecture neutral, multi-threaded, automatic memory management, object-oriented programming language with a strong exception handling mechanism for developing different kind of applications such as web, Windows, form, console, web services, mobile, etc., which can be run on different types of operating systems such as Windows, Linux, and Mac. So basically, this is the definition what I have created. Again, I'm going to explain this definition in detail once in our introduction to C#. I'm going to explain why C# is simple, why C# is secure, why C# is robust, why C# is portable? What do we mean by a platform independent? What is architectural neutral? Every point what I'm mentioning here, I'm going to explain, because our main objective is in this course is to learn C Sharp and its fundamental concept, right? So C Sharp is the primary programming language for .NET developer, right? C Sharp is not the only one programming language. Apart from C Sharp, there are other programming languages are also available like VB.NET, like JSharp, F Sharp, right? But C Sharp is the most used, most user-friendly programming language, what you can say, that is used for developing the modern applications in the .NET platform. So what are the features that you should aware to become a proficient developer? Means some of the basic concept: variable, data types, operators, conditional statement, object-oriented programming concept, exception handling, event delegates, lambda expression, generics, multi-threading, asynchronous programming, collections, file handling, parallel programming, automapper, ADO.NET, and LINQ. So these are the concept, right, which is related to C Sharp, and you should know all these concept. And in this session, right, in this course, I'm going to cover all these concepts. Clear, guys? As of now, any question from anyone?
Yeah, I do have one question. Are you going to cover actor class,
Sorry,
actors?
actors.
Yeah,
Actors means?
it's in a C sharp, it's actors. We frequently we are using in our projects. It's
So
called
you mean
actors class.
you mean you are talking about unit testing, right?
No, not unit testing. It's no, basically not unit testing, but actual code. We are using actor classes. So I don't know whether you're going to cover in C sharp.
No, no. Actually, I'm not getting what exactly your question. Can you ping the question in the chat box? What
Sure,
exactly
sure.
was, right?
ACTOR, actor class. So that's what we are going to use very frequently.
Actor class.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is not a C sharp concept, right? It is like the solid principle, right? Design pattern. So it is one of the concept, right? In this course we are going to cover the C sharp fundamental concept, right? So actor class is it's whatever you are talking. It is something one pattern, right? So that is not we are going to cover, but most of the things, right, we are going to cover that is related to C sharp. Right? That actor class, whatever you are talking, if you would say, I will take one class and I can explain the concept.
Okay, thank you.
So these are the concepts that what we are going to use and we are going to learn in this session. So we are going to cover all the C sharp concepts, right? We are going to cover the entity framework and entity core. But guys, remember, I'm not going to explain both the approaches. I will decide, right? I will ask you guys whether you want to learn entity framework or entity framework core, because both are going to be same. And explaining two different approaches, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, one framework I'm going to explain in depth, right? Every concept I'm going to explain. Other one I'm going to give you one example, right? So for example, if I'm explaining entity framework, all the related entity framework concept in depth, then I will take entity framework code to give you one example where I will perform the CRUD operation. On the other hand, if you learn entity framework core in depth, right, then I will explain all the concepts related to entity framework core, and then I'm going to discuss one example where I'm going to show you how you can use entity framework to perform the database CRUD operation. But it is not possible for me to explain both the concept, because both are going to be same. The concept, the DB context class, the DB set class, the right word relationship, data annotation, and everything is going to be same. So it doesn't make any sense to explain the same concept twice. And here, as I mentioned, this is I'm going to give you at the end how you can develop the application using ASP.NET Core, right? And definitely, this framework is targeting both the .NET Core as well as the .NET Framework. I'm going to show you example how you can develop application using .NET Core as well as the .NET Framework. So these are the fundamental things, and this core, right? This is what we are also going to develop. Web application development with ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET, right? ASP.NET. So web applications, as you know, in modern internet days, allowing users to interact with the data services and other users, right, in a dynamic way without need to install the software to their local machine. So for that purpose, right, we need to use web application. For example, if you are using any app means you need to install that app on your machine, right, on your mobile, right? Some desktop apps are available which you can install on your desktop. Some mobile devices is that for that purpose you need to right? For that purpose, you need to install some of the app. But without installing any kind of app, if you want to access, right, then for that purpose, you need to use or you need to develop you need to develop internet-based applications, or you can say web applications. And in Microsoft, right, we are using two different technologies. One is ASP.NET. So whenever I'm saying ASP.NET, you need to consider it is ASP.NET Core MB. Sorry, not ASP.NET Core. In this case, you need to understand ASP.NET means ASP.NET MVC or ASP.NET Web API or ASP.NET Web for to develop the web applications. And whenever I'm saying ASP.NET Core, you need to understand that ASP.NET Core means ASP.NET Core MVC, ASP.NET Core Web API, ASP.NET Core Azure Pages, ASP.NET Core Blazor. So these are the concept, right? That what you can use to develop the web application, right? But that is fine. But as if you want to become a proficient pro developer, .NET developer, you also need to understand some of the fundamental concepts, right? Fundamental concept means you should know what is client server architecture, who is the client, who is the server, right? How the client and server communicate with each other. You should know what are HTTP protocol, right? Whenever you are accessing one URL, what is HTTP, what is HTTPS, right? What is the get request, what is post request, what is patch request, what is delete, right? What is put, all these things you should know. You should know what are the different HTTP status code. 200 means what, 404 means what, 500 means what, right? You should know all these HTTP protocols in detail. You should know what is front end and back end technologies, right? For example, if you are developing the application, then what is the front end, what is the back end, right? So that things you should know. For developing the front end, what technologies you need to use. You can use HTML, CSS, JavaScript. For backend, you can use .NET, C#. You can use databases to store the data. Those are coming as part of your backend things. You should have very good understanding about the databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, right? SQL Server, right? Microsoft SQL. So you should know what is SQL Server, or you can say MS SQL Server. So these are the databases that you should know. Anyone is fine. And the web application framework, definitely you should know. If you want to become a .NET developer, then you should know ASP.NET or ASP.NET Core framework, which you can use to develop web applications. Then API-C, nowadays, learning only web framework is not enough. You also need to know how you can perform the CRUD operations, right? How you can develop the web services, how you can consume the web services, what is the importance of web services, right? That is what you need to understand. And as you know, nowadays you need to think about what do you mean by responsive design. Responsive design in the sense how you can develop the application which can be viewable easily in a mobile application, which can be visually in a tablet, which can also visually in a desktop, right? That means irrespective of the type of devices, the looks and feels should not be tampered, right? That is what you should know. What do you mean by session and cookies, right? How the session and cookies are going to be maintained by the server, by the browser, how the server is going to send the session data, how the server is going to send the cookies data, how the browser is going to maintain those session and cookies data in the browser, how it is sending the session and cookies data in each and every request to the server, and then server how it is retrieving the data, where it is storing the data, right? If you are using session, then the data is going to stored in the server side. If you are using cookies, then the data is going to be stored in the browser side. What is the difference between them? What is the lifetime of session? What is the lifetime of cookies, right? These are one of the important concepts that you need to understand from the ASP.NET, right? From the web application development point of view. Authentication and authorization, this is the main important concept. Main important concept means if you want to provide that some kind of security, you can also say that only authentication user can access my website, and some of the resources are there where we need to check with what is the role of the user. If the user role is having admin, then he can access this resource. If the user role is user, then he should not access this particular resource, right? So basically, if you want to make sure that the resources are going to be accessed by authentication and authorization user, right? Then in that case, you need to implement authentication and authorization in your application. right? So again, you need to understand the security. Security means it is one of the important concept, right, in your application. So you need to understand what is SSL, what is TLS, right? How you can encrypt and decrypt the data, how you can prevent SQL injection, XSS attacks, how you can implement anti-forgery token in your application, right? Cross-site request forgery attack, right? How you can implement SMAC authentication in your application, how you can send the data in encrypted format, how you can uh, retrieve the data, and how you can convert that encrypted data into decrypted format. All these things you need to understand. Then hosting and deployment means what? This is also important, right? So once you understand everything, then you should know how I can publish my application, how I can host my application into server, right? Can I access how I can host the application into cloud, right? So all this, how you can host application on premises, on cloud, right? All these things you also know. And nowadays, if you are developing the web application, right, you should know this MVC architectural pattern, right? So what is MVC architectural pattern means? You should know what is the role of a model, what is the role of a controller, what is the role of a view, how model, right, is going to be consumed by view and controller, how controller is going to handle the incoming request, how controller is going to work with the model, and how controller is going to decide which view to need to be used to render the data, right? All these things you need to understand. And building web API. So in this case, I have shown you, you need to know how you can consume the RESTful services to perform the CRUD operation. Also, right, as you know, right, not only learning web application development is enough, you also need to know how you can develop the web services, right? Because see, I can develop one web application using ASP.NET Core MVC, where I can directly communicate with the database and perform the database CRUD operations. Sometimes I need to use some third-party APIs, right? For that purpose, I need to know how I can consume the RESTful services. For example, if I'm developing one e-commerce application where I need to get the data from ClearTip for booking the flight, or right, booking the hotel, I need to get the data from ClearTip. Or if I'm using some kind of O2 means it's a popular provider for mobile recharge, right? I have to know how I can consume their services to perform the operations, right? But sometimes what will happen, right, if you become a .NET developer, sometimes you need to develop RESTful services. Client application can be developed using any platform, any technology like Angular, React, like you can also develop some apps, right? Mobile applications like Android, iOS, right? Even though they want to communicate with the database, but they cannot communicate with the database directly. So for that purpose, you need to develop web APIs, right? They are going to consume your web API. Your web API is going to perform all the validation, right, validation logic, right, whatever the business logic, how they are going to be streamlined, how they are going to interact with the database and other kind of services, right? So you should know how to develop web API, right? And guys, remember, this part I'm not going to cover in this session, right? This is not related to our C#. This is completely related to your web application development framework, and you should know all these things, right, if you want to become a .NET developer, right? And data access with the entity framework and the entity framework core, we have already discussed. We have two options. You can use database, right? You can use entity framework or entity framework core. But before using entity framework and entity framework core, you should have a very good understanding about the SQL concept, right? So SQL concept means you should know SQL and relational database concept, like what is a table, how to create a table, what is a column, what is a constant, what is rows, what is keys, what is indexers, right? How you can maintain the primary key and foreign key relationship, what are trigger, what are join, what are storage procedure function, how you can maintain transaction management, right? All these things you should know. Apart from this, you should know how you can perform the CRUD operation on a database table. So database fundamental is the mandatory things. Then you can make use of entity framework, right? I'm not discussing what is modeling, coding, change tracking, all these things, because I'm going to discuss entity framework in detail, right? Whatever I'm saying here, everything I'm going to discuss in detail. So as part of this course, I'm going to cover entity framework and entity framework core in detail. So it is up to you which one you prefer to use, right? Learn whether you are going with the entity framework. I'm fine. If you want to go with the entity framework core, then also it is fine for me. Anything I'm ready to explain, right? So once you understand this concept, right, understanding this application architecture and the design patterns is very, very important, right? So nowadays, right, whenever you are going to develop applications, right? You need to follow some of the principles, some of the design patterns. And as a .NET developer, and if we want to become a proficient .NET developer, then we also need to learn those things, right? So first of all, you should know what is solid principle, right? Solid means the solid transfer or solid design principle means each word is going to be one principle. Solid means it is nothing but representing 5 different principles. So you should know what is single responsibility principle, what is open close principle, what is list of substitution principle, what is interface segregation principle, what is dependency inversion principle. And in this course, we are also going to cover the solid principle in detail, right? So all the solid principle I'm going to cover, right? Apart from the solid principle, you also need to learn other design patterns, right? So other design patterns means you should know what is Gango for 23 design pattern, what is try, don't repeat yourself, case git, simple and stupid, MVC, right? Repository pattern, unit of work pattern. So in this example, right, I'm going to explain all the design pattern apart from this MVC design pattern. So I'm not going to discuss MVC. Apart from MVC, rest all the design patterns I'm going to discuss. I'm going to discuss the Gango for 23 design pattern. This 23 design patterns is categorized into 3 categories: creational design pattern, behavioral design pattern, and structural design pattern. All the design patterns I'm going to discuss. I am while I'm explaining the concept, I will explain what we mean by don't repeat yourself. I will explain what is keep it simple and stupid. Repository design pattern I'm going to explain in detail. Unit of work pattern also I'm going to explain in detail. Apart from that, one more design pattern what I'm going to discuss in this case, dependency injection design pattern. Right? So dependency injection design pattern also I'm going to cover as part of this course. Right? So basically, if you want to become a proficient .NET developer, then you should and you must know what is solid principle and what are all the design patterns. Clear? Clear, guys? Up to now, as of now, any question?
Yeah, would it be better to include MVC as well, at least maybe just a high level,
Yeah,
rather
high level
skipping that?
is six. Yeah, if you want to allow me to explain MVC, that's fine. I will explain that concept as well, right? But don't think that ASP.NET Core MVC I'm going to discuss in depth, right? One session, or right, I'm happy I can explain what is MVC design pattern, right? Where I am going to explain each and every component, right? That's fine. Okay, let me. If you guys are saying, then I will include this one, right? MVC
Thank
design
you.
pattern also I'm going to include as part of this course, right? And guys,
Thank you.
remember nowadays, right? Nowadays, right, we are going to the microservices architecture, right? So microservices means instead of developing one big application, let us split that application into small many applications. That is what the objective of microservices. And most of the complex, right? If you are developing a small project, microservices is not required. But if you are developing a very big complex applications, right, then in that case you need to consider about using microservices. But microservices, it's not that easy, right? You should know, you should understand, and then only you can prepare and you can go and develop the application using microservices. And that is important thing. And you should know what is microservices, what are the different microservices provider, what is Kubernetes, what is Docker, right? What is API gateways, right? All these things are nothing but a key concept which are related to microservices. And I'm not going to discuss microservices as part of this course, right? Because it is itself, it is a 1 month course, right? So I'm not going to include that as part of this course. Next one is testing and continuous integration, right? So testing means whenever you are developing the application, testing is mandatory thing. So you have to implement unit testing, you have to implement integration testing, you have to implement end-to-end testing. So as part of this course also, I'm going to discuss how you can implement unit testing. Unit testing means individual component, how you can test, right? And for that purpose, you can make use of different types of unit testing framework like XUnit, NUnit, and MS test, right? So I'm going to use at least one of this framework to show you how you can implement unit testing in your application, right? And this integration testing and end-to-end testing is not possible in this case because we are not going to develop any kind of a web applications, right? Where we are having many different components. And integration testing and end-to-end testing I'm going to show on my ASP.NET Core course, sir. But here I'm going to show you how you can implement. Suppose you have written one function, whether that function is behaving proper or not, whatever the output you are expecting and whatever the output you are getting, whether both are same or not, that what I can test, and for that purpose I can make use of a unit testing. So that is what I'm going to cover. But integration testing and end-to-end testing, it is not possible. For that purpose, right, I'm going to explain those concepts on my C# course, right? So integration testing means it is the process of testing interaction between integrated components. So whether if for a particular application, right, 2 or 3 components needs to be integrated, whether they are integrating or not, that is what you need to test. And end-to-end testing means one complete life cycle you need to check. So from the starting to the ending, suppose you are developing one application for the order placing, then you need to check from the beginning, from the login to the order place, right? If every functionality is working as expected or not, for that purpose, you need to use end-to-end testing, right? And some of the popular tools that you can use to perform this integrated testing, like MS Test, NUnit, Mock, right? Text server, entity framework, in-memory database. For end-to-end testing, you need to use some tools, right? Like Selenium, Spaceflow, Playwright, right? Coded UI, Appium, Postman, and Newman. So these are the concepts that you need to understand, right? If you are going with the ASP.NET web application development, then you should know what to mean by integration testing and how you are going to perform the end-to-end testing. Next one is important, right? That is your CI/CD, right? CI/CD means continuous integration and continuous development. So what it means? It means nowadays we are not doing the manual deployment activity, right? We are not publishing the code, right? We are not taking the code to the server, and we are not doing that publish into the production manually. So for that purpose, what we are using something called CI/CD. So CI/CD means automatically process of building the application code, the process of publishing the application, the process of deploying the required DLL or exe or whatever changes you have made into the server. That process, if you want to do automatically, then in that case, you need to use continuous integration and continuous deployment. To build and deployment tools like MS Build, .NET CLI. CLI means Common Language Interface. I'm going to show you what we mean by .NET CLI, MS Build. Version control systems you need to use, like but to implement this thing, you should have some kind of version control like TFS, like Git, like Azure DevOps. So in this course, I'm going to include this, right? Git. So GitHub, I'm going to explain how you can implement, and to perform the CI/CD, you can make use of GitHub Actions, Azure Pipeline, Checklinks, and TeamCity, right? So you should know at least one of these tools, right, using which you can perform the continuous integration or continuous deployment activity. So basically, it is nothing but your automated deployment process. Automatically, whenever you whenever you check in some of the code in your TFS or in Git, right, whatever you check in, that once you check, right, then automatically he will check whether there is any error in your code or not. If there is no error, then he will publish the code. Once he publish the code, then he will check the related, right, DLLs, whatever changes you have made, automatically he will take and he will deploy to the respective folder. That process automatically, if you want to implement, then you need to use continuous integration and continuous deployment. And for this, you should have these things. So you should have MS Build or .NET CLI, which is going to build your application, and you should have at least use one of the version control system, because without this control, you cannot perform this thing. And you should know at least one of this framework, right? One of this platform where you can right, using which you can do the process automatically, right? So this CI/CD techniques is also important. And then another thing is performance tuning and optimization, right? So performance tuning and optimization means if you are developing the application, then you should know how my application is behaving, whether there is a memory leak, whether I can optimize the CPU usage, whether the application is behaving properly or not, what is the performance, what is the health issue, right? Whether everything is working fine, whether the CPU utilization is going higher than what I am expecting, right? So if you want to check all these things, then you should know what are different profiling and diagnostics tools that are available in .NET to do all these things. And in .NET, you can make use of a Visual Studio diagnostics tools, right? You can make use of a .NET profiler. I'm going to show you how you can make use of a .NET profiler You can use .NET Diagnostics SDK. You can use this one, right? You can use .NET Counters. You can use diagnostics tools with Azure. We can also use Windows Performance Monitor. I'm going to explain this Windows Performance Monitor, right? And see, these are one different tools which you can use to check the health status of your application. So whenever I'm saying health status means what is the performance, right? Whether there is any memory leakage or not, right? Whether the CPU is going higher than 80%, 90% CPU utilization, right? So all these things, if you want to check, and if you want to diagnostics means if you want to check the application health, then you need to use any of these tools, right? And then performance best practices means you have to regularly you need to monitor whether your application is behaving correctly or not. If any issue, you need to identify what issue is there, how you can identify. Leverage metrics means you need to use counters and application instance, right? And to check whether the application behaving properly or not. And continuous improvement means you need to use some these tools to improve your application performance, right? So this is one of the best practices that you need to follow. And at some point of time, I'm also going to discuss what is the best practices to do all these things, right? Then another thing is security and cryptography, right? Security and cryptography means this is the mandatory things, right? So for me, whenever we are developing one application, three things we need to take into consider, primarily, mainly three things. One is if I'm developing the application, for what application, what is the business logic that should be fulfilled. Second is performance, means the application should give good performance, right? The user should not wait for a longer period of time to get the output. And the third one is security. Without security, nobody is going to use your application. So these are the three fundamental things that you need to learn and you need to use if you want to become a good .NET developer, right? So already we have discussed what we mean by authentication and authorization, right? And for authentication, you can use form authentication, Windows authentication, or Open IT, right? Some third-party authentication. You can use identity server, or currently you can also use ASP.NET Core Identity. So these are the different tools that you can use, right? And here I'm not going to discuss any of this. These things you will learn in ASP.NET Core, right? So you have to understand at least this is the one which is used nowadays, ASP.NET Core Identity. Authorization, you also need to understand what we mean by authentication means it is going to identify the user is an authenticated user or not. Once the user is authenticated, then you need to identify if the user accessing a particular resource, whether that user having access, right? Whether the user has access that particular resource or not. That for that particular purpose, you need to use authorization. And in .NET, right, you can make use of a role-based authentication. You can make use of a claim-based authentication. You can make use of a policy-based authentication. You can make use of a resource-based authentication. So these are the different authentication authorization mechanisms that are available in .NET, and you need to learn all these things. Cryptography and data protection means what? See, if you are developing one web services and the client is going to consume my web services, the client can be my what I can say, the client can be a mobile client, can be what I can say, one web application desktop, from anywhere they can consume my services. But whenever they're consuming the services, the data is going over the internet, right? So if the data is going over the internet, then what we need to do? We need to protect our data, right? So we need to protect our data so that if any middleman, any hacker, any person in between the client and server request, if they want to hack our data, they should not, right? They should not get the actual data. For that purpose, you need to use some kind of a cryptography or data protection. Means what? Basically, what it means? It means we need to use some kind of algorithms to protect our data. So to protect in the sense, we need to encrypt the data. And for that purpose, what we can go with? We can go with some symmetric algorithm like AES, TS, RC2, asymmetric algorithm like RSA, TSA. Even you can also make use of some hashing algorithm like SHA-256, SHA-512, MD5. So these are the algorithms that what you can use in your web application to protect the data. right? Apart from this, some random number generation, secure password storage, key storage, data protection, right? You need to also understand all these things, but mandatorily you should know what are symmetric, asymmetric, and hashing algorithms, right? That is the important thing. Then what you need to do, deploying and managing .NET application, you should know how to compile and publish the application. What are the different deployment models? See, you should know what do you mean by build and publish. Build and publish are not same. So build and publish, you should know what is the meaning of a build. You should know what is the meaning of publish. I'm going to discuss what is build, what is publish, right? I'm also going to discuss the different deployment methods, like how you can do the manual deploy, web deployment, right? Docker container and cloud providers, right? All these things I'm going to. So cloud Docker is not possible, but I'm going to discuss rest of these two things, right? Configuration management, right? If you are developing some application, and if you want to configure some sensitive data, then where you need to store those data, right? For that purpose, we are having something called app settings, environment variable, and secret manager, right? So these are the things that what you need to learn if you are learning ASP.NET Core Web API or ASP.NET Core MVC. Monitoring and diagnostics, right? So if you want to monitor how your application is performing, if there is some issue, then where is the issue? Why is the issue? What exactly the issue? For that purpose, you need to use proper logging mechanism, proper application insight, and you need to do a periodical health check, whether the application, right? You need to go to the server, you need to check what is the CPU utilization, whether you need to check any error is occurring, right? All these things you need to monitor periodically. Scaling and load balancing means if you are deploying your application on the cloud, then you need to see, right? You need to check, right? If the user, right, the number of requests is increasing, then I need to increase the number of instances of my application. That is nothing but if you are increasing number of instances, this is horizontal scaling. Vertical scaling means if number of requests are increasing, so instead of creating number of instances, right? Uh, what I need to do, I need to increase the CPU size, I need to increase the RAM, and I need to increase the SSD, right? That is nothing but your vertical scaling. Updates and rollback means you should very good aware about update and rollback. See, suppose you have done one deployment, but that deployment is not gone well, then you should have the plan B. Plan B in the sense, if the deployment is not successful, then I need to roll back, and to roll, if I'm going to roll back, then what things I need to put. That is nothing but your update and rollback. Backup and disaster recover. You should take the proper backup, and whenever you are taking the backup, don't put the backup in the same server where your application is hosted. Because if that server is crashed, that hard disk is crashed, your backup as well as everything is lost. So you should take backup and into a different server, and from where you can write in case of disaster, right? You can easily get the backup. Continuous integration, continuous deployment, we have already discussed, right? Staying up to date with .NET and the developer community, right? So whatever the new features are coming, right? You should up to date yourself. What are the new technologies are coming, that you need to be up to date yourself? And what are the different developer community provided by MSTN, right? That you need to visit. Apart from that, you should know what the GitHub, how they are providing the right implementation, how changes, what new features are introducing, right? You need to visit GitHub, Reddit. Even the best friend of a developer is Stack Overflow. You should know how you can properly utilize the Stack Overflow. And even apart from this, you need to regularly read books, articles, tutorials, right, on .NET topics. So these are the fundamental things that what you need to learn if you want to become a proficient .NET developer in 2023 and beyond. Clear, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the roadmap of a .NET developer, right? If you want to become, then step by step, you have to complete all these steps. Any question from anyone?
Yeah. So you're saying that you're gonna go through these things that are highlighted in red, but some of these things are not in the some of these things are not in the
See,
syllabus that you sent us.
see, whatever I'm highlighting, most of the things are in the syllabus, and that is what I'm going to discuss. Some of the things are not in the syllabus, which I will add, right? Which I will add. So for example, if you see this MVC design pattern, it is not in the syllabus. That is what I'm going to add. This unit testing is not in the syllabus. That is what I'm going to add. But apart from this, rest of the things are going to be available. This JIT, some of the people ask me in the Telegram groups that please include JIT. This is not in the syllabus, but definitely I'm going to add this into this syllabus. Right. So, and whenever I'm going to explain the concept, I'm going to use some kind of a .NET profiler. I'm going to use Perform Monitor. See, these are not separate syllabus, but while I'm explaining the concept, I'm going to use this tool and I will show you how you can use this Perform tool, how you can use .NET profiler, right? That is what I'm going to discuss, right? So mostly whatever I'm showing here, everything is available. Yes, this is not available, right? ASP.NET Core it is not available as part of the syllabus because this is not related to C#. It is mostly related to your ASP.NET Core.
All
Clear,
right, thank you.
guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and one more thing, I'm going to start from the very basic to the most advanced concept, right? So, any question from anyone before moving to the next topic?
Yes, I do have. I just wanted to know about another framework that is .NET Standard. So what is the difference between the other
So
and
there's no framework called .NET Standard,
okay,
right? For example, if I open this Visual Studio 2022, right? So
yeah,
there is nothing called .NET. I'm going to create an application, right? And
yeah,
I'm going to create a console application. I'm selecting here console, right? So how many frameworks are coming? This is console application, a
hmm,
project for creating command line application that can run on .NET on Windows, Linux, and Macs. So this is nothing but targeting .NET framework. .NET,
right,
not .NET framework. This is nothing but your .NET Core. And another one is .NET framework. This is nothing but you're targeting the Windows operating system. See, you can see C# Windows console. Here it is C#. You can develop the application using Linux, Mac, and Windows. So there is
hmm,
nothing called the .NET standard. Either you have .NET framework or .NET,
okay, thank you.
right? Clear?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah. So people are saying this .NET framework, they are referring as a .NET standard, nothing else.
okay.
Yeah. Clear, guys? Any question from anyone else?
I have another question as well. Let's suppose I am migrating my application from .NET Framework to .NET Core, but my existing, like there is one separate library which we have created in .NET Framework. And while moving to the .NET Core, what we want is that library should be used by both .NET Core and .NET Framework so that like we can't move the whole of the application in one go in .NET Core. So like let's suppose few of the APIs we are moving in .NET Core and few will remain in not .NET Framework. But the common libraries which we are using, what should be those library being moved to? Like whether it should be moving to .NET Core or it should remain in .NET Framework.
Basically, in that case, right? So first of all, you need to understand why you should move to .NET Core because of a cross-platform open source and that other things.
Yes,
If
right,
you are developing the library using Windows platform, that means that is targeting to Windows environment.
right.
And if you are going to deploy the new application in .NET Core, do you think that .NET library is going to work with that Windows library is going to work with Linux?
Actually the application will be hosted on the cloud server itself.
See,
So
even the cloud server, there is definitely going to be an operating system. Now, without operating system, even if you are saying cloud means without operating system, do you think that your application is going to be hosted on the cloud?
no,
Definitely, they might be using either Linux, Mac, or any kind of operating system. And
yes,
within the
right.
operating system, they are having some kind of right server like Apache Tomcat, IIS, anything. But yes, we are
Yeah,
saying cloud that is going to be controlled by them,
right.
right? It is not our own server. But in that case also, right? But you just tell me, if you are developing the application using .NET framework, do you
Hmm?
think that that application you can host on cloud?
No.
The answer you are only giving the. So
Yes.
if you are targeting .NET Core means that .NET related Windows specific concept, it is not going to be work here. You need to convert that into .NET Core as well.
Okay, so the strategy would be like we should have two copies of that project, right? One would
Right?
be
First of all, you just make sure that both are completely two different things altogether. There is no link between your .NET as well as in your .NET Core.
okay.
Right? Clear?
Yeah, I was thinking like there is a separate .NET standard which is like being compatible with both .NET Framework and .NET Core. So that's why
No,
I
no,
asked like whether there
no,
is
no,
any framework
no,
related to
no.
standard.
No, no. So basically, it is completely rewritten from the scratch. There is no link between your .NET Core. Even if you once I start developing, then I will show you, right? The system class what I'm using with the .NET framework is going to be different in .NET Core. You don't think that the same system class, right? Yes, the
Hmm.
code whatever you are going to use, the way we are using, it's going to be same, but the implementation is going to be different. One DLL, right, is going to be, the path is going to be different. If you are using .NET Framework, the path is going to be different than .NET Core. The same, process is going to be same. We can write the console class, write console.writeLine. The method name is going to be same, but the implementation of both this DLL, right, both this method are in two different libraries, right? That
Okay,
is what. Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Any question from anyone, guys?
I have a question. Whatever you redlined, if we know only those things, can we say we are proficient .NET developer, or do we have to also take another courses where
No,
I
no,
know
no, no.
these
See,
not redlined?
if See, if you are, let me ask you this question. See, if you know all these things red line, that doesn't mean you are a proficient web developer, right? So basically, you see, in this case, I have not mentioned this in the red line, but do you have a very good understanding about the client server architecture? Do you have very good understanding about the HTTP protocols? Do you have very good understanding about the front-end back-end database? Right? You should know what is ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET Core frameworks to develop web applications. You should have very good understanding about the what I can say web APIs. You should know what are session, cookies, authentication, authorization, hosting, deployment, MVC architecture, right? If you know all these things, then you can say yes, you are a proficient developer, .NET developer. Right? But what I have mentioned is these are the basic concepts that you should know before moving further, right? Before moving and before understanding, before learning the ASP.NET Core, MVC, ASP.NET Core Web API framework. These are the mandatory things that you should know. Clear?
Okay.
Should we be aware of the base class libraries as well?
See, base class library means what is the meaning of base class library? You just tell me.
Like the libraries which are provided by the framework, let's suppose Microsoft itself.
Yes, that definitely. See, basically what it means, if you are going to develop any application using .NET Framework, then without base class library, can you develop any application?
No.
Obviously, that is mandatory things, and that base class library is going to be provided by .NET Framework or .NET Core, right? Whichever application you are using, they are going to provide the class libraries. Na?
Yes, but my question is like, should we be aware of all the libraries which are there in the base
Not,
class
not, not,
libraries?
not, not required, right? There are thousands libraries are available. Library in the sense classes. We do not require all those libraries. So whichever required, that is what we are going to learn,
Okay.
right? But
Okay.
thousands of libraries are there. So that doesn't mean we are going to use thousands of libraries now. But if you are developing a MVC application, what are the
Hmm.
libraries? That what we need to understand and learn.
Like HTTP client is a
Okay.
separate thing. So
Okay.
should we be aware of all the things related to HTTP client or only?
Obviously. See, if you are, so what I'm mentioning here, if you are going to develop, consume some application interface, if you are
Hmm.
going to consume some RESTful services from your application, then you should know what are the library or how you can consume the RESTful services, right? For that purpose,
Hmm.
you need to learn HTTP client, right? How you can
Yeah.
consume the async version, non-async version, right? That is what the meaning of this, now consuming application programming API means how you can make use of a RESTful API, how you can call the HTTP request to perform the CRUD operation. That's what you should know. So I'm here not mentioning the library names, but that means what? If I'm saying if you are going to consume the HTTP services or RESTful services, then you should use the libraries. Clear?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what I'm mentioning here, right? I'm not mentioning the library name because there are a thousand of libraries. I cannot name or I cannot tell the name of all the libraries, right? For example, right, JSON serialization. For that, we are going to use JSON, right? For converting the .NET object to JSON, JSON to .NET, we are going
Yes.
to use JSON. So we cannot. So for ADO.NET, we are going to use SQL connection, SQL command, right? Entity for entity prima, there are separate set of class libraries, right? Whenever I'm going to explain those concepts, the related concept I'm going to discuss. Suppose I'm
Okay.
going to develop consume some RESTful services, right? And at that time, I will tell what are the libraries that I can use to consume the RESTful services,
Okay.
right? If I'm
Okay.
going to use entity framework, then I will tell you how you can, what are the library, where you can get the, from where you will get the library, how you can going to consume the libraries, right? All these things I'm going to explain.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Any question, guys, from anyone else?
Sir, by completing your both classes, can I become a proficient .NET developer?
So once both the courses are completed, right? I'm taking two courses. One is .NET Core, which is completely related to web development, and another one is C# .NET. And once you complete both, then you will become 80% pro developer. Why I'm not saying 20%? Because to lot extra 20% means you should know what is cloud computing, right? You should know what are microservices. So once you understand the cloud part as well as microservices, then you will become a proficient developer. But only this C sharp means 50%. You completed 50%. Once you know how to develop web application and web services, you will become 80%. And once you understand the microservices and cloud computing, right, as you or we can say AWS, then you will become 100% pro developer. But 100%, theoretically it's 100%, but no one can say that I know everything, right?
Okay, sir.
Right. So this is the roadmap to become a proficient .NET developer. But yes, if you know C# concept related fundamental entity framework, ADO.NET, solid principle, design patterns, LINQ courage, right? And if you know ASP.NET, MVC, Web API, and the database part, right? You know what are the testing framework, how you can perform unit testing, integration testing, right? And if you are having some CI/CD knowledge, then even without learning the microservices, or you can say without cloud computing, you can also become a proficient developer, right? But in that case, again, if some microservices development will come into the picture, then again you need to learn. Learning microservices and implementing microservices is not a big deal, right? If you know how to develop web services, then you can easily learn microservices. And nowadays, microservices is becoming more and more popular among the developer to develop very complex application. But if you are developing a small or medium-sized application, microservices is not required. And even to develop microservices, very good understanding of the basic concept is necessary. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir. Can I ask a small question?
Yes, yes.
Like, can you please cover delayed signing and DLL help problems?
So, did you go through my course syllabus?
No, just high level overview.
No, this is the high level overview I'm talking. Did you go through the course syllabus?
Yeah, yes.
So, in this course syllabus, there is .NET Framework Architecture 1 chapter 13 is there. So, am I mentioned all these things, whatever you are asking?
Yeah, thank you.
So see, already I have provided the syllabus because I know, because what I'm asking in the interview, right? This concept, it is not related to our development, right? Nobody is going to create an assembly and put into the GSC. But as this concept is available, we need to understand what is GSC, what is strong named assembly, what is weak named assembly, what is DLL hell problem, and how we can overcome DLL hell problem by making our assembly as strongly typed assembly and putting the assembly into the GSC. And if you want to put the assembly into GSC, that means your assembly must be a strongly typed assembly. You cannot put weakly typed assembly into GSC. Then the question comes to your how to create a strongly typed assembly. We need to generate we need to provide some information, right? How we can make the weak assembly, whatever the assembly we generated, how we can convert that assembly to a strongly typed assembly. Everything I'm going to discuss. Okay. The next topic what I'm going to discuss today is how does the computer work? Can anybody explain me? Can anybody explain me how exactly the computer works? What are the main components of a computer? By looking at this particular diagram, can anybody explain me? Okay. So basically, as we are going to develop the programming language, why I'm going to learn the programming language? Because we need to communicate with the computer. Because the computer, right, using our computer, we need to browse the web applications, right? So basically, if we are going to learn programming, C# programming language, which alternately we can say it is a computer language, right? Using that language, we need to communicate with the computer. So before learning the programming language, we need to understand how exactly a computer behaves, how does the computer work, right? So basically, if you see from the high level point of view, if you look, there are five major components. One is input device, output device, one is CPU, one is main memory, and one is hard disk, or you can say SSD, right? So these are the five important components of a computer. So what is CPU? CPU means what I can say, it is the brain of the computer. It is the brain of the computer, or you can say it is the heart of the computer. Right? See, if your brain is not working, can you do anything properly? No, you can't do anything. Means your brain is saying what you need to do, how you need to do. That is what is in the instruction is given to you by your brain. Similarly, in our computer, if we are going to do anything, then that thing is going to be performed by the component called CPU, Central Processing Unit. The CPU is the component of our computer who is going to process all the instruction. If I'm saying, hey, Mr. Computer, open this file, close this file, then the CPU is the one who is going to perform this operation. If I'm saying, please do this addition, 10 plus 20, then the CPU is the component who is going to perform the addition operation, right? And if you look at the CPU, there are two components. One is ALU, another one is CU. ALU means arithmetic logical unit, CU means control unit. Can anybody tell me what is the role of this ALU?
To perform all the calculations or anything.
Exactly. So basically, arithmetic and logical unit means what? Now, if you are going to perform some kind of arithmetic operations like addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, modulus, right? All the arithmetic operation, that is what going to perform by this ALU component. Another, this is the role of ALU. Arithmetic. Logical unit means what? If you are going to perform some kind of a logical operation, right? If x is greater than 5, one logical operations, right? 10 equals 20, you are checking whether this condition is true or false, right? So that logical unit, right, arithmetic operation plus logical operation, that is going to be performed by this component called ALU, arithmetic logical unit. And then the other unit, that is nothing but your CU, control unit. Control unit means what? Now it will control all the different units of your application together, right? Suppose you want this input unit, this output unit, this hard disk, this main memory, right? Everything is going to be controlled by this CU, right? So how? Let's see, there are the two things that we need to understand, right? So there are two things we need to understand. So this is my hard disk. Hard disk means where we can store the data permanently. Permanently means if you are storing something into the machine, right? Permanently into your application means you are storing that data or whatever information permanently into your hard disks, HDD, or you can say currently people are using also SSD, right? So if you are storing something into the files, then there are two types of files that are being generated. One is data files, another one is program files. Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of data files and program files? Right? Because see, if you are learning the computer programming language, means you should know all these things. What is the use of a data files and what is the use of a program files? Any idea from anyone?
And data files are normal data related files, but program files need some compiler to run or something like that.
Okay, you are not correctly, but yeah, you are right. from some point of view. Program files, right? And there is something called data files. Data files. Program files or data files. Suppose in your application, there is a file called notepad.cxc. Somewhere it is being installed in your machine. You are having some VLC media player. VLC media player. Some exe it's installed on your application, right? And for here, you are creating one text my data.txt. You are having some .mp4, right? So in this case, this notepad.exe, this is nothing but your program file. Using this program file, you are creating this text file where the actual data is going to be stored. It's nothing but your data file. This VLC media player, what is installed on your machine, that exe file, it's nothing but your program file. But this my MP4, right, where exactly your video is there, that is nothing but your program file. Now you tell me, without program file, can I use data file?
No.
No or yes?
No,
No.
sir.
No.
No. So these program files are nothing but your application or programs which you need to be installed on your machine. Without installing the program file, you cannot access the data file. Data file is basically used to store the data present, right? To store the data permanently. But in order to store the data, you need a program file, right? For example, if you go to your machine, right, somewhere see Windows 32, right, you will find that the data file, right? For example, if I'm going to this C Windows 32, if I'm going to here and if I'm looking for this notepad, right, then you will see this notepad, that is CSS, this one. And if you open more options and go to properties, then you will see this is an exe. This is one exe. The data file, the program files in our Windows operating system is going to be in the form of a .exe, which needs to be installed on your machine. Once you installed the program files, then you can create the data files where you can store the data, right? Where you can access the data. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right. Right. But now we need to understand one more thing, right? Suppose I want to do something, right? Suppose I'm typing something, I'm opening one notepad, I'm typing something from the keyboard. Then in that case, the CPU is going to access the data file. The CPU is going to access the data file, but the CPU can access the data file only from the main memory, not from the hard disk. Right? But here you can see this notepad.exe. It is stored where? It is stored on the hard disk, not on the RAM. But CPU can access to your main memory. The main memory is nothing but your working memory, right? So the CPU can access your main memory only, not the hard disk. Then what you will do? Suppose the CPU want to access the notepad, then what you need to do? So when you open the notepad is brought back from your hard disk into the main memory, and from this main memory, the CPU can access the data. For example, currently this notepad is open. Now, if you open the task manager, right, then definitely you will see that notepad.exe, right? Or let me expand, right? Whatever the application I have opened, right? Or this is nothing but your main memory. So whatever application you can see here, it is nothing but your main memory accessing, right? So this you can see CPU accessing the notepad.exe. How? Because the CPU is stored on the hard disk. But once you open the application, once you open a data file, that before the data file being added, right, you can see that the program file is brought back into the RAM, and from the program file, the CPU is going to access the data file, right? So you can see this notepad.exe is being here, and from here, right, the memory, right, the CPU can access. And before moving, right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this one, right? I'm going to close this one. Right, I'm going to close this one. Right now, currently the data file is not there. That means the program file is not here. Why? Because once you open the data file, before the data file, the program file will brought back into the main memory, and from the main memory, the CPU can access the data file. But currently, as I have closed the notepad, you can see the program file is not here, means the CPU is not accessing. But as soon as I open the notepad, right, you will see that the program file is notepad, right? So in this case, you can see notepad.exe, this is the program file. Similarly, this word, this is nothing but one program file, and everything, whatever you are seeing, it is nothing but your program file. Program file are loaded into the main memory, and from the main memory, the CPU can access. CPU cannot access your program files, right, from the hard disk. So first of all, you need to load the program file into the main memory. For example, you have stored one MP4 in your machine, but you do not have a VLC media player or any kind of a media player to write, which can allow you to run the MP4 file. Then do you think that once you double click, right, do you think that you can access and you can watch the video? You can, because for the data file, it is mandatory to be the program file. The program file is the one which using which you can access the data file. And in order to do this, first of all, the program file needs to be brought back into the main memory. And from the main memory, once it is brought back into the main memory, then only the CPU can access this. Clear, guys? These three components.
I have a question here. All the files are storing in the SSD or HDD, and when you open the any file explorer, Windows Explorer, so you can see all the subdirectories, all the files. They are stored on the HDD, right?
Yes.
Only when you open, then it will move that into the main memory, and then
No.
from there
See.
it will open.
First of all, you need to see if I'm executing something, right? So those files are not going to be loaded into the main memory. Only the program files is going to be loaded into the main memory. So this is the reason what I have said. So I can see notepad.exe. This is my program file, notepad.exe. And then I'm having something called the mydoc.exe. So using this is my data file. So this is the data file, and this is the program file, right? So this is the program file. So basically, whenever you open, right, this notepad.exe will brought back into the main memory. And using this notepad.exe, you can access the data file. Clear?
Yeah, got it. So like on the screen, Windows Explorer, you can see data files. You can also see program files, everything. That means you can see all the files which are stored in the HDD, right? But
Yeah. So
when you
this is
want
your
to, yeah,
this is your hard disk. Here you can see everything,
yeah,
but that
got it.
doesn't mean everything will be loaded into the memory. See, if everything is going to be loaded, your hard disk size is 1 TB, 2 TB. But what is the size of your RAM? Only 12 GB, 15, 16 GB, something like this. If everything will be loaded into main memory, then do you have that capacity of main memory? So only the program files are going to be loaded, and whatever file
Okay.
you are accessing, right, that you can access using the data file. See, you can see. Currently only these things are opening. Why? Because these are the program files, and these programs are currently I'm using on my machine, right?
Got it. Okay.
But whether you use or not, everything you can store into your hard disk. Clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Right. So now, so whenever you are running the application, right, and if you are giving some kind of input data from your keyboard or from your mouse, right? So keyboard and mouse are nothing but your input devices. Then how that data is going to be consumed, right? So the point that you need to remember the point that you need to be remember, input devices having its own buffer called input buffer. So whenever you input something from the keyboard, that data will be stored inside this input buffer, and the main memory can access to this input buffer. So main memory is not accessing the input devices directly. So input device will provide the data to this input buffer, and the main memory is going to access, right, is going to fetch the data from this input buffer. And then once it fetches the data, the data is fetched from this input buffer to the main memory, then CPU can access those data. Similarly, once you perform the output, once you perform the operation, and if you want to display the data into the output screen like monitor, right, to printer, right, then what you need to do? the data from this main memory you need to put into this output buffer, and from this output buffer the output devices, right, is going to fetch the data. Output devices is not directly communicating with the main memory, or main memory is not communicating with this input devices. So in between input and main memory, or output and main memory, there is something called input buffer and output buffer, and this input buffer is going to be consumed by input devices as well as main memory. Output buffer is going to be consumed by both input output devices and output as well as main memory, and all this communication is possible because of this control unit. Clear, guys?
Yeah.
Clear? Or anybody having any doubt related to how exactly the computer works?
How the speed depends on these things, like the input we are giving is very
Yes,
fast to be accessed by the main memory, and
that
similarly the
basically,
output.
exactly, that basically depend how many cores you are using, how many processors are there, what kind of a processor is there, what is the RAM size of your application, what is the CPU utilization of your machine, right? That basically depend what is the speed. For example, if you go to this place, right, and if you go to this performance, then you will see right, what is the speed, utilization, processes, everything is going to be here, right? What is the utilization? If utilization is more, that means the processing is going to be slow.
Okay, and this also
Right.
depends on the hardware as well.
Yeah, so this is not depend on the hardware. Yes, hardware definitely hardware will come into the picture, but it is completely depend upon your what I can say, the RAM, how many RAM is there, what is SSD you are using, or because if you
Mm,
are using SSD, then the performance is going to be better comparing to the normal drive, right? And how many processor, 2-core processor, 4-core processor, right? How many number of logical processor, physical processor, right? Everything
mm.
is going to be decide whether the performance is going to be good or not,
Okay.
right? So this is how the computer exactly works. I will share, guys, don't worry about the documentation, everything I have explained, and I will share this document to you guys. The next important topic what we are going to discuss is nothing but your introduction to programming languages. So already we have 11 a.m. So the next topic we are going to discuss tomorrow. Clear, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So if anybody wants to register for this training program, they can ping me, right? Because we have one more demo classes, and then in this weekend, right, Saturday and Sunday, we are having 3 hour 2 sessions, and within this weekend, I'm going to cover these concepts. Right. So basically, tomorrow I'm going to discuss few important concept, and then one day I'm going to discuss what are the different software, how you can install those software into your machine. Everything I'm going to explain in detail. And this document, what I'm presenting you, I'm going to give you one by one, right? So document in the sense, whatever I explain, those document only I'm going to share. Right. So today I have explained two components. What is the roadmap of .NET developer and how exactly the computer work means. These two documents I'm going to share with you guys. Any question from anyone? And anybody new in today's session?
Yeah, I have a question. Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, is there classes on Saturday and Sunday as well?
Yes, Saturday and Sunday it is from morning 7 to 10. 3 3 hour session, because otherwise if I'm not taking 3 3 hour session, then I cannot complete the right course in 5 months. So because the course syllabus is very heavy, and I'm going to explain each and every concept in detail from the basic to the advanced level concept, so we need to have some longer session, right? And this is the reason, and most of the working professional, they are
Okay.
unable to session in the weekdays, and they are going to attend in the weekends, right? Weekend means we are having we are going to have a longer hour session, 3 hour 3 hour,
So
and
yeah,
not
so
only 3 hour, in between the session we are going to take a break for 15 minutes.
yeah, so every day there are classes on
No,
weekdays, 1.5 hours.
not every day. Monday Tuesday there is no classes. Apart from Monday Tuesday, the rest 5 days we are having class.
Okay, on weekdays it is 1.5 hours and weekends
Yeah,
3 hours.
currently I'm taking 1 hour 30 minutes, but sometimes, but as we progress, then that will be 2 hours. These are the demo sessions. I'm not taking more time, but once the main
Okay.
session started, then it will be something like 2 hours.
Mhm.
Now, something means it is not always going to be 2 hours sometimes, right? So once I start one topic, until and unless that topic is not completed, I can stop the session. Once the topic is completed, then I can stop the session. And sometimes, suppose today, exactly at 11 a.m. the topic is completed. So I'm not going to start a new topic today, right? But if before 10 minutes, if that session, that topic is completed, then definitely I'm going to start this topic, and it will take at least 15-20 minutes more to complete, and that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if I want to
question.
join, I can fill the form.
No, there is no form to fill. So did you join the Telegram group?
No.
No. So you just ping me, and do you have my number?
I can see a WhatsApp number in your website.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
just
the one?
ping me on my WhatsApp number. I will share the details how you can
Okay.
join.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Anybody having any more questions?
Yeah. Would it be better to send the Word documents in advance, at least one day before,
Oh,
so
no.
that we
See,
be prepared?
no, that's not possible. I'm not going to share the documents in advance, because sometimes what happens, this document I have prepared in my previous sessions, right? And in this session, I'm going to modify the documents, right? Some of the concept I need to add, some of the things I need to modify, some of the things I need to change, right? I'm also updating the document. I don't want to share the old document, right? For the latest, right, some of the concept are changed, right? And then accordingly, I need to prepare the documents, right?
Yeah, I got your point. But again, at the same time, if you send in advance so that like
No, see,
whoever
if you
attending,
have
they can well prepared.
if I'm sending the documents in advance, then it is going to be two-time work. So again, I need to send the updated document. Do you guys agree with if I'm sending only the old document and not the one what I'm showing in the presentation? If you are agree, then I don't have any issue. But I can send the document twice.
I'm not sure, like maybe other people's opinion, but it just at least helps
No,
some
see,
people to go through
see,
at least to 10,
see,
15 minutes in advance. Yeah.
See, that I will consider about. I will take a poll, right? Like the way we have decided the training time. In the same way, once the main session are started, right, I will take the poll from the members. If more members are interested for the documents in advance, then definitely I'm going to share the documents. Is that clear?
That's great.
Is that
That's
fine?
great. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So see, basically, I'm preparing this document only for you guys. If you guys are interested in to interested for sharing the documents in advance, right? Then definitely I can share the document, right? So no issue for me. But for that purpose, I need to take the opinion from the all other guys. Notes will be helpful, can help us to prepare for the lecture. Yes, definitely notes will be helpful, right? And I'm spending, right, more times, right? Not this session, in the previous session only I prepared this document, right? And for preparing the document, for one document, I'm spending at least 3 to 4 hours for preparing the documents. Then definitely it is going to help you. And this document is a well documented manner, right? Whatever the concept required, everything I'm putting, right? Including the interview questions also. It will definitely help. So you can make changes during the lecture. It's okay, right? See, the thing is that how you can do the changes. If I'm changing the example altogether, so some theoretical concept, that is fine, right? But what about the programs? If I'm adding more programs, right? If I'm modifying the program, if I'm adding some new interview questions, new concept, and how you will do that?
Yeah, we
That
can we
will
can come up like maybe before, just we can add part 3 introduction to programming language before session, maybe after lecture, something like that we can come up. Yeah, but we can
see,
yeah.
the problem is that I have to prepare the document twice. So first of all, I will share the document. I will create a new document with the updated information. Right? Again, I need to publish. Again, I need to share the document. That means I need to share the document twice. You understood my point?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
right? So we'll see what I can do, what is the best possible solution. That what even though it's not an issue for me to share the document twice, that what I can also do, right? But let the
Okay.
main session started, not in the demo session. Definitely,
Sure.
I
Yeah,
will
I
take
got
this
it.
into considerations, right? Definitely, what I'm saying, you are giving a best suggestions, but what I'm thinking, if I'm providing the document in advance, then people will not come and join the live sessions. That is what I'm fearing about.
or or maybe in this case you can do like one thing. You can send a zip of file, all the files in advance for all the lectures to the subscribed members, and after like that would be only a one time activity, let's suppose
Yeah,
tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.
yeah, that is fine. That is fine. That is not an issue for me. But what my concern is, if members are getting the documents in advance, will they going to attend the live session? That is what my concern.
That is, yeah, that is a problem.
I
Because
don't
see,
think just by going through the document they can understand. It just gives the overview, and
no, no,
then we can well
definitely.
prepare to ask the questions like during the session. Yeah.
Yeah, that is fine. That is whatever you are saying, that is good. But what my concern is whether the people are going to join the session, because some, right, if some good people are there who are having good experience, right? Once they go through the document, most of the things they will understand. 70-80% they will understand. Then they will think, yeah, but the 20% why I'm going to spend 2 hours in the session, right? So, but the thing is that whatever document I am providing, apart from the document, many things I'm going to explain and discuss, which is not as part of the documentation, right? Everything
Yeah.
we cannot put into document. Some real-time examples, some real-time scenarios, right? That is what we need to explain theoretically. We need to explain understand those concepts. Those concepts I cannot put everything in the document. But yes, whatever interview preparation, whatever example, whatever concept, right? Explanation, best possible way I'm providing the document. But apart from the document, many things I'm also going to discuss. Right. So it is always, and say watching the recorded session 2 hours is boring, but attending the live session is not boring. So in the live sessions, you are going to interact with me. It is not a one-way traffic where I can only explain the concept. I'm taking I'm asking you question. You guys are asking me question, right? I'm asking, you are explaining, you are answering me. You will ask me question, I will explain. Sometimes some situation will arise where neither I will answer, neither you will answer. For that purpose, we need to do some kind of R&D. R&D is not only going to be done from my side, also going to be done from your side as well, right? I'm going to give some of the tasks, some of the right tasks. You have to prepare, you have to do the task, right? So we need to make this session more interactive than right one-way traffic. Yes, we will join the session because notes are true. Okay. Okay, fine. So any question from anyone? Definitely, I'm going to share the document in advance, but once the main sessions are started, and I'm going to share only to those members who are going to join the sessions, right? Not to the demo sessions, not to the
Thank you.
everyone, right? Current. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
one
Any
final
question?
question
what
from
are the
me.
timings? What are the timings of the real classes?
So classes, apart from in weekdays, it is going to be 9:30 to 11, and on weekends, Saturday, Sunday, it is going to be from what I can say 7 to 10.
Morning 7 to 10.
Yes, it's morning 7 to 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
One question from me. You showed me the task manager where it shows 3 columns like a CPU percentage and then memory and disk, right? So the disk is SSD and memory is the where
See,
the
see
application
SSD and
program.
hard disk. See, SSD and hard disk is there is no difference. If you are using SSD, then it will improve the application performance. On my system, I do not have any hard disks. I have 1 TB SSD only. So if you compare 1 TB SSD with 1 TB hard disk, then definitely SSD going to give you better performance because it is going to utilize the hardware resources in a more efficient manner than what the normal hard disk is doing.
You see on the top, CPU, memory, disk, and network.
So this is the
In
CPU.
your diagram, CPU, the central unit, right? The memory is the middle part, and then disk is the down one where we have the files, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
No. See, in this case, this CPU, memory, and the disk, these are going to be completely right. The utilization across all physical drivers, right? So don't consider that this is your hard disk or SSD. right? So this is a driver. Some of the system drivers, system software are there. They are going to be used internally, right? So we need to consider about this CPU and this memory. So how much RAM is there? How many percentage RAM utilization is happening? That is 49% RAM utilization is there. 13% CPU utilization is there. But even I do not have that much of experience into this kind of network at all.
Yeah, just
Clear,
wanted
guys?
to know how this percentage goes up for the CPU and
See,
how and when the memory percentage goes up. Yeah.
it basically depends upon the number of instances your application number of request it is going to handle. It currently number of application I have opened. If I'm opening more number of application, right? As we progress, I will open 2-3 instances of a Visual Studio. I'm going to install open Visual Studio, SQL Server. So at that time, if more number of applications I'm using, then definitely the CPU and memory utilization is going to be more. And imagine whenever you host the application into the server, then the number of request is coming to your server. That will decide how much memory and CPU going to be utilized. So basically, so this is the reason why I'm saying writing optimized code is the best way to improve your application performance. So currently, if you are accessing 50 to 100 requests are coming to your server, the server can easily have access. But suddenly, if that 100 number of requests increase to 1,000, increase to 1 lakh, then do you have that much optimized code so that the server can handle that huge request at any given particular moment of time? So for that purpose, you need to effectively utilize the CPU resources. And if you want to utilize the CPU resources, then what you need to do, you need to definitely use the optimized code. And for writing the optimized code, multi-threading, asynchronous programming, and parallel programming is must. You should know how exactly these three concepts are working together and when to use and what to use.
Okay. So when do we get the system crash? Will it reaches the CPU 100% or memory 100%?
Obviously, if the CPU utilization is going to be increased, right, to 80%, 9%, right, then you will see that whenever you send a request to the server, right, once you, whenever you send a request, then that request is going to take more time because there are less number of threads are available to handle your request. As there are less number of threads are available, definitely your request is going to be in the pipeline for a longer period, like when it get a chance to be processed by the thread. So definitely you will get poor performance if the CPU utilization, if the memory utilization is very high, then definitely you will get the poor performance.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Any question, guys, from anyone else? Okay. So guys, if anybody wants to confirm their seat, they can ping me directly, right? And my number is this one. If nobody have my number, then please note this number. This is my number 9717021801173. This is my WhatsApp number and mobile number, right? You can store this. You can save this number and you can ping me in the WhatsApp. Don't call me after 12 because from 12 my office timing is start. So before 12 you can call me, and after at night after 6 7 you can call me anytime, right? But before calling me, just ping me a message. If I'm available, then definitely I will take your call. But you can ping, you can send me a WhatsApp message at any given point of time, right? And you can also see once the main session are going to be start, I will create two different batches for the Telegram group. Like the way we are creating the ASP.NET. So this is the ASP.NET code training group, right? Where 102 members are there, and this is the discussion group, right? Discussion group means where the member who wants to participate in the discussion, they are joining here, right? If anybody having any question, they can put the questions here, and members are going to answer the question. In the same way, I'm going to create two different Telegram groups. One group where I'm going to upload the documents as well as recorded session, where I am only the person to do any kind of activities. Another group or discussion group where anybody can share anything. If you are having any question, you can ask there, right? If you want to share, if someone asks any question, you want to give the answer, you can also answer there. If you attend any interview and if you are whatever the question the interviewer asking, you want to share with all guys, you can also share the interview question. If you know the answer, then you can also enter and provide the interview question as well as the answer, right? And in any new concept you learn, you want to share your experience with us, then you can also share, right? That is what we need to make this session more interactive. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you guys for your time and hope to see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.